The transport ship descended through the purple clouds of 9, its hull gleaming in the light of the binary suns. Inside the luxury cabin, Lord adjusted his hunting vest and smiled at his companions. The noble stood tall, his blue scales catching the light as he checked his plasma rifle. "Another perfect day for the hunt," he said, his voice filled with anticipation. "I hear they have fresh stock this week." His friend Lady laughed as she examined her own weapon. "The best part is how they run, so much more entertaining than actual animals." The ship landed on the private pad near the hunting lodge. 9 was beautiful, with thick forests and rolling hills. The preserve covered thousands of acres, all of it fenced and monitored. To anyone asking, it was a wildlife conservation area. The Galactic Council had even approved the permits, but the truth was far darker. Across the galaxy, on the border world called Haven's Edge, Mitchell sat at her desk and stared at her computer screen. She had worked as an aid coordinator for 3 years, helping process refugees from war-torn worlds. The job was hard, but she loved helping people find new homes and safety. But something was wrong. Had noticed a pattern over the past 6 months. Children kept disappearing from the system. Not many at once, just 1 or 2 from each group. The official records said they had been transferred to special relocation centers, but when tried to follow up, she hit walls everywhere. She pulled up her files and counted again. 47 children in 6 months. All of them orphans or separated from their families. All of them listed as transferred, but no forwarding information. No adoption records, nothing. Sophie's door opened. Her supervisor, a tired-looking man named Greg, walked in with a, "We have another transfer order," he said, handing her the device. 12 kids heading out tomorrow morning." Looked at the list. Her heart sank. 6 humans, 3, 2, and 1 child, all under 12 years old, all without families. "Where are they going?" she asked. Greg shrugged. "The usual relocation center on Axis 4, standard procedure." But had checked. There was no relocation center on Axis 4, just a transfer station where the children vanished into the system. After Greg left, sat in the dark and made a decision. She was going to find out what was happening to these children. 200 miles away, Marine Captain Daniel Hayes stood on the landing pad of Forward Base Sentinel. His squad had just finished a routine patrol of the sector. Nothing unusual, just the normal smuggler traffic and the occasional dispute between trading vessels. His comm unit beeped. "Private message, priority flag." "Captain Hayes, you have an incoming escape pod. Debris field suggests hostile action, coordinates attached." Daniel called his team together. Sergeant Park, a quiet man with sharp eyes, Corporal, their tech specialist, and Private Stone, their medic. They grabbed their gear and headed out in their patrol craft. The escape pod was barely functioning when they found it. Hull breaches everywhere, life support failing. Daniel forced the hatch open while prepared his medical kit. Inside, they found a small alien child, species maybe 8 years old. The child was dying, blood seeping from multiple wounds. Worked fast, but they all knew it was too late. The child's eyes opened, focusing on Daniel with effort. "Please," the child whispered in broken standard. "Tell them about the hunts. Tell them what they do to us." "What hunts?" Daniel asked, leaning close. "Who did this to you?" "The Preserve, 9, they buy us, they hunt us, for fun." The child's hand clutched at Daniel's uniform. "My friends are still there, save them, please." The child died before saying anything else. Sat back, his face pale. "Captain, what was he talking about?" Daniel looked around the pod. Was already checking the small computer system, pulling data from the damaged circuits. "I've got something," she said. "Coordinates for 9, and there's video files, but they're corrupted. I can only see pieces." She pulled up what she could recover. The images made Daniel's blood run cold. Children running through a forest, armed figures chasing them, the crack of weapons fire, young voices screaming. "Pull everything you can from that system," Daniel ordered. "I want every bit of data recovered." Back on Haven's Edge, received an anonymous message that night. No sender information, no trace on the routing, just a file attachment and a single line of text. "They're killing them, the proof is here." Opened the file with shaking hands. Financial records, transfer orders, and location data. All of it pointed to one place, a hunting preserve on 9, registered as a wildlife conservation facility. The file showed payments from the preserve to officials at various refugee stations. Large sums of money changing hands, and lists of names, children's names, hundreds of them over 3 years. Recognized some of the names, kids she had processed herself, kids she thought were safe in new homes. She downloaded everything to a secure drive and sat in the dark, trying to control her anger and horror. These people were buying refugee children and hunting them. And somehow, it was all legal because the paperwork said the preserve was for animals. The next morning made a call. She had met a Marine captain once at a refugee crisis on the border. He had helped her evacuate civilians from a war zone. His name was Daniel Hayes, and she knew he was stationed nearby. "Captain Hayes," she said when he answered, "we need to talk. It's about children being killed." Daniel was silent for a moment. "I think we have the same information. Can you meet me?" They met that afternoon in a secure room at the base, brought her files. Daniel brought his data from the escape pod. When they put everything together, the picture was clear and horrible. They were running a hunting preserve where wealthy aliens paid huge sums to hunt living targets. They bought refugee children from corrupt officials because refugees were easy to hide. No families to ask questions. No records that anyone cared about. "How many?" asked, her voice barely steady. Had been working on the numbers. "At least 200 in the past 3 years, maybe more. The pod data only goes back that far." Spoke up, his voice hard. "We need to contact command, get authorization for a raid." "That will take weeks," Daniel said. "Maybe months with all the diplomatic issues. They have council permits. This is technically legal in their system." "Legal's," voice rose. "They're hunting children." "I know." Daniel looked at the image frozen on the screen. A child running through trees, terror on their face. "The question is what we do about it." Pulled up the transfer order from yesterday. "These 12 children ship out tomorrow morning. They'll be on 9 in 3 days. After that..." She couldn't finish the sentence. Daniel looked at his team. They all knew what he was thinking. Going to 9 without orders would end their careers, might even land them in prison. But children were dying while the bureaucracy moved at its usual slow pace. "We have 72 hours, Daniel said quietly. "If we're going to do something, it has to be now." Nodded slowly, was already pulling up transport schedules, checked his medical supplies. Looked at them. "You're really going?" "Yeah," Daniel stood up. "We're really going, someone has to." Outside, the transport with 12 children prepared for departure. Inside the ship, a little girl nommed the civilian transport ship landed on 9 without any problems. To traffic control, it was just another maintenance vessel bringing supplies to the preserve. The paperwork had forged was perfect. No one questioned them. Daniel and his team wore plain work uniforms. They carried toolboxes that held more than tools, had weapons hidden under the false bottom of his case, had enough computer equipment to hack into any system on the planet. His medical bag was real, but he hoped he would not need it for the reasons he feared. "Stay calm," Daniel reminded them as they walked through the landing area. "We're just maintenance workers here to fix some systems." The preserve was massive. The main lodge was built like a palace, all luxury and expensive materials. Around it were smaller buildings for staff, storage facilities, and what the maps called holding areas. Daniel knew what that meant. Those were where they kept the children. Beyond the developed area stretched the hunting grounds. Thousands of acres of forest, hills, and clearings. All of it fenced with barriers that looked invisible but would stop anyone trying to escape. Sensor towers every few hundred yards tracked everything that moved inside. A supervisor met them at the service entrance. He barely looked at them. "You're here about the climate controls in Section 7, he asked, checking his. "That's right," Daniel said, keeping his voice neutral. "Should take us a couple days to fix." "Whatever, just don't bother the guests. We have important clients this week." The supervisor walked away without another word. They were in. Found a maintenance room in the lower levels of the main building. "This is perfect," she said, pulling out her equipment. "I can access their whole network from here." While worked on the computers, the others explored. The preserve tried to look like a normal hunting lodge, but the truth leaked through. Daniel saw weapons on the walls that were designed for hunting people, not animals. The guest rooms had viewing screens showing different areas of the hunting grounds. Found the holding area. It was underground, probably to keep it away from casual viewing. He signaled Daniel, and they made their way down through the service corridors. The holding area was worse than Daniel had imagined. Cells lined both walls, each holding 3 or 4 children. The conditions were basic but clean. They were keeping them healthy for the hunt. Daniel counted 42 children. Different species, different ages, but all young, all terrified. Some cried quietly. Others just stared at nothing, their eyes empty. In one cell, he saw Sophie, and the twins were holding each other, trying to be brave. They had only been here one day, but already they looked broken. Daniel wanted to break down the doors right then, put a hand on his shoulder. "Not yet," whispered. "We do this wrong and they all die." They retreated back to the maintenance room, had made progress. "I'm in their system," she said, "and you need to see this." She pulled up files on the main screen. Schedules, records, video archives. The preserve had been keeping detailed documentation of every hunt for 3 years, probably for their clients to review later. Played one video. Daniel forced himself to watch. A group of children were released into the forest at dawn. The hunters gave them 30 minutes, laughing and drinking while they waited. Then the hunt began. The hunters had all the advantages: tracking sensors, thermal imaging, weapons that never missed. The children had nothing but fear and desperate hope. Some children tried to hide. The sensors found them. Some tried to run. The hunters ran them down. It usually took 2 or 3 hours, the like to make it last. Left the room halfway through. They heard him being sick in the corridor. "How many videos are there?" Daniel asked, his voice flat. "Hundreds," said quietly. "They've been doing this twice a month for 3 years." Was studying the current schedule. "There's a big hunt planned for 3 days from now, 20 children. They're calling it a special event." Daniel looked at the list of children scheduled for that hunt. Sophie and were on it. "Can you control their systems?" he asked. She nodded. "Given enough time, I can control everything. Sensors, communications, doors, even the defense turrets. But if I do too much too fast, they'll notice and lock me out." "We need those children ready to move when we make our play," Daniel said. "Can we get weapons into the hunting grounds without being detected?" "Maybe. I saw a maintenance shed near the north fence. If I can get there with our gear, I can hide it for later." They spent the next 2 days preparing, moved weapons and supplies into strategic locations around the hunting grounds, slowly took control of the preserve systems, making tiny changes that looked like normal glitches, studied maps of the terrain, finding the best places to hide children during an escape. Daniel watched the preserve's daily operations. The nobles walked around like they owned the universe. Lord was the worst. He talked openly about his favorite kills, describing them like someone might describe a good meal. "The boy last month was perfect," said to another hunter at dinner. "He almost made it to the river. I let him think he might escape before I took the shot." Daniel clenched his fists under the table. He was eating in the staff area, close enough to hear the nobles in the main dining room. On the 3rd night, something happened that changed everything. A guard brought in a new child, a girl maybe 14 years old. She was tall and thin with dark blue skin, but her eyes were different from the others, not defeated, angry. Identified her through the system. Her name is Maya. She's been in 3 different refugee camps. Records show she's been separated from her family for 2 years. Daniel watched Maya through the security cameras. She was studying everything. The doors, the guards, the routine. This girl was looking for a way out. "We might have help on the inside," observed. The next morning intercepted a communication from orbit. A ship carrying 6 nobles was arriving that afternoon. Very important clients, very wealthy. They wanted the special hunt moved up by 1 day. "That's tomorrow," said. "We're not ready." "We have to be." Daniel pulled up the maps. "Can you access everything we need?" "Yes, but it's going to be obvious once I start. They'll know someone is messing with their systems." "That's fine. Once we start, there's no hiding anyway." Daniel looked at his team. "This is it. Last chance to back out. We do this and our careers are over, maybe our freedom too." Nobody moved toward the door. "All right then," Daniel began laying out the plan. "Tomorrow morning they release 20 children into the forest. We're going to be waiting. The hunters think they're tracking children, but we're going to be tracking them." Smiled, and it was not a nice smile. "They want a hunt, let's give them one." That night, Daniel managed to get close to the holding area during a guard shift change. Maya was awake in her cell, watching everything. He moved to where she could see him through the small window, put a finger to his lips for silence, then held up one finger, tomorrow. Maya's eyes widened. She nodded once, understanding. Daniel left her a small piece of torn cloth near the door, the kind maintenance workers used. On it, he had drawn a simple map marker, the cave system on the north side of the grounds. If things went wrong, that was the rally point. When morning came, the nobles gathered in the lodge. Lord was in the best mood Daniel had seen. The big hunt was his favorite event of the year. 20 targets, he announced to the other hunters. The most we've had at one time. I propose we split into 3 groups, make it more interesting. The nobles agreed, laughing and placing bets on who would catch the most. They were drinking expensive wine at breakfast, treating it like a celebration. In the holding area, guards began pulling children from the cells. Sophie clutched, both of them crying. Maya walked out with her head high, helping some of the younger children stay calm. They were taken to the starting point in the forest, given water and told to run when the signal sounded. 30 minutes, then the hunt would begin. Daniel was already in position. So was in the maintenance room with her hands on the controls. The starting signal echoed through the forest. The children scattered, running for their lives. The nobles waited in the lodge, watching on screens and laughing. Lord checked his rifle and smiled. The children ran through the forest, their small feet pounding on the dirt trails. Maya kept 4 younger ones together, moving them toward the thicker trees. Sophie stayed close to an older boy who seemed to know something about survival. In the lodge, the nobles finished their drinks and picked up their weapons. The 30-minute mark passed. Lord activated his tracking display, showing 20 bright dots scattered through the forest. Group Alpha, take the western sector, he commanded. Group Beta, the eastern valleys. I'll lead Group Gamma through the central forest. The hunters moved out, confident and excited. They had done this dozens of times. It was always the same. But they were wrong. Daniel watched the first hunting group through his scope. 5, all armed with plasma rifles and tracking devices. They were following a signal that showed 3 children hiding in a rocky outcrop. The hunters moved carelessly. Why wouldn't they? There was no danger here, just frightened children and an afternoon of sport. Was positioned near the rocky area. He waited until the hunters split up to surround the hiding spot. Then he moved. The first hunter went down without a sound. Just a quick strike to the back of the head with the butt of his weapon. They collapsed into the bushes. The second hunter noticed something was wrong. He turned, calling out to his companions. Hit him too, a bit harder. They dropped. The other 3 hunters heard the noise and came running, but they ran right into Daniel's position. Drop your weapons, Daniel said, his rifle aimed at the center hunter. They looked at him in shock. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were maintenance workers, soft, harmless. One of them raised his rifle. Daniel shot the weapon out of his hands. The plasma rifle exploded in a shower of sparks. Next one goes through you, Daniel said calmly. Drop them now. The hunters dropped their weapons. On the ground, hands behind your heads. While they lay on the forest floor, confused and angry, emerged from the rocks with 3 terrified children. A human girl about 10 years old and 2 smaller boys. It's okay, said gently. We're here to help. You're safe now. The children stared at him. The human girl started crying. You're really helping us, she whispered. Yes, we're Marines. We're getting you out. Checked them for injuries while tied up the hunters with their own equipment straps. Daniel activated his comm. Package 1 secure, 5 packages down. His voice came back. Confirmed, adjusting their tracking display. The other groups don't know anything's wrong yet. The plan was working, was feeding false data to the hunting groups, making them think the children were still running, still hiding in different locations. The hunters were being guided away from the real children and toward Daniel's team. In the central forest, Lord frowned at his display. Something felt off. The signals were moving strangely, but he pushed the feeling aside and led his group deeper into the trees. Maya had reached the cave system Daniel marked. She got the 4 children inside and went back out, moving carefully through the forest. She found Sophie and running blindly through the trees, exhausted and terrified. This way, she said quietly, taking their hands. I know where to go. Who are you? Sophie asked between gasps. Someone who's done running. Maya led them toward the caves, and I think we have help. She was right. Daniel found them 10 minutes later. Maya, he asked. The girl looked at him, recognition in her eyes. The maintenance man, I knew something was different about you. I need you to take these two to the North Caves. Can you do that? Maya nodded. Already heading there, how many of us are you saving? All of you, Daniel said. Every single one. Maya smiled for the first time in months. Then I'll help. Tell me what to do. By noon, Daniel's team had intercepted 3 hunting groups. 15 hunters were tied up in various locations around the forest. 12 children were safe in the caves, was treating minor injuries and handing out food and water. But the operation wasn't perfect. 2 children were still missing, and Lord was getting suspicious. Something is wrong, he said into his comm. Beta group report status. Static. Alpha group respond. More static. Looked at his remaining hunters, 4 of them including Lady. Someone is interfering with communications. Head back to the lodge. We're calling security. Heard the transmission. Daniel, they know, is activating the security forces. How many? 20 armed guards, heavy weapons. They're spreading out through the grounds now. Daniel thought fast. Get all children to the caves and hold that position. I'm going after the last 2. Captain, we should extract now, argued. We have most of them. Most isn't all. Find the others and get to the rally point. Can you control the security systems? Working on it. Give me 2 minutes. Daniel moved through the forest toward the last known position of the missing children. 2 young boys, both human. Brothers named Jake and ages 6 and 8. He found them cornered in a clearing. 3 security guards had them, rifles pointed at the terrified children. The guards were calling for transport. Daniel didn't have 2 minutes to wait for. He stepped into the clearing. Let them go. The guards spun, weapons tracking to him. Daniel's rifle was already aimed. You're outnumbered, human, one guard said. Put down your weapon. You first. The guard laughed. Or what? You shoot me, my friends shoot you, and the children still die. You have no play here. Daniel smiled coldly. I disagree. His voice crackled in his ear. I have the defense turrets, say when. Now would be good. The automated defense turrets that surrounded the preserve suddenly activated, but instead of pointing outward, they turned inward. Red targeting lasers painted the 3 guards. The mechanical voice of the turret system spoke. Unauthorized weapons detected. Stand down or be engaged. The guards looked at the turrets, then at Daniel, then at each other. They slowly lowered their weapons. On the ground, Daniel ordered, Jake, come here. The boys ran to him. Daniel kept his weapon on the guards while backing toward the tree line. This isn't over, human, one guard snarled. You're dead when Lord finds out. He already knows, Daniel said, and I'm counting on it. He got the boys back to the caves. All 20 children were together now, was doing final medical checks, had set up a defensive perimeter. Now what? Asked. We have them, but we're surrounded by armed guards and very angry. Daniel pulled out a transmitter. Now we tell everyone what's been happening here. Had been working for 2 days to break into the preserve's communication array. Not just the local system, but the main galactic network. Now she unleashed everything. Video files from the preserve's archives began broadcasting. Hundreds of hours of hunts, children dying, nobles laughing, financial records showing the payments, transfer orders with official seals, names, dates, locations. It went out on every major channel, news networks, government feeds, social media. Within minutes, billions of beings across hundreds of worlds were watching children being hunted for sport. On Earth, people stopped what they were doing to watch in horror. Other species saw their own children in the videos. Parents recognized kids they thought had been safely relocated. The reaction was instant and explosive. In the Preserve Lodge, Lord watched his whole world collapse in real time. The videos were playing on every screen. His comm was filling with messages from lawyers, government officials, and very angry investors. Turn it off, he screamed at his staff. Turn it all off. But had locked them out of their own systems. The videos kept playing. Lady was pale. We need to leave, now, before someone decides to make an example of us. Leave, this is my preserve, my property. No one can touch me here. I think someone already has, said quietly. The security forces were in chaos. Some of them had seen the videos and realized what they had been guarding. Others were receiving orders from orbit to stand down. The government was already scrambling to distance itself from the preserve. Daniel's comm activated. It was an open channel from the lodge. Human, Lord voice was tight with rage. I know you're out there. You've made a terrible mistake. Release my guards and surrender. I might let you live. Daniel activated his response. Lord, you're going to release all your prisoners. You're going to deactivate your security systems, and you're going to wait right where you are for the authorities to arrive. Or what? You have 20 children and 4 humans against my entire security force. You cannot escape this planet. I don't need to escape. I just need to keep these children safe until help arrives. And help is coming. Every government in the galaxy just saw what you've been doing. You're done. I have diplomatic immunity. I have permits from the council. Everything I've done is legal. Then explain it to the courts, Daniel said. Explain it to all those parents watching their children die on your videos. I'm sure they'll understand. There was silence on the comm. Then spoke again, his voice different, dangerous. You've taken something from me, human, my reputation, my business, my freedom. So I'm going to take something from you. What's that? Those children. I'm coming to finish what I started, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. The comm went dead. Looked at Daniel. He's not bluffing. He has nothing to lose now. Neither do we, Daniel checked his weapon. We hold here no matter what. In the caves, Maya was helping keep the younger children calm. Sophie and sat together, holding hands. Are we really safe? Asked. Maya looked at Daniel, then at the children. She thought about the past 2 years, the camps, the fear, the feeling of being worthless and forgotten. Yes, she said firmly, we're safe because someone finally came for us. Outside, Lord gathered his remaining loyal guards and began moving toward the caves. He had nothing left but rage and the desire to make someone pay for his ruined life. But between him and the children stood 4 Marines who had already decided they weren't letting anyone. Lord moved through the forest with 12 guards at his back. They were the ones still loyal, still willing to follow him even though everything was falling apart. Some followed because they were paid well, others because they enjoyed the work. The caves are 2 kilometers ahead, one guard reported. We have them trapped. Good, said. No survivors this time, not the children, not the humans. We burn it all. But was listening to every word through the security network. Daniel, they're coming with heavy weapons, is talking about burning you out. Time until help arrives. Nearest response ships are 90 minutes out. Human fleet just entered the system, but they're 3 hours away. Daniel looked at his position. The caves had limited entry points, which was good for defense. But if used fire or explosives, they would be trapped inside with 20 children and no escape route. We need to end this before they get here, said. Take the fight to them. No, Daniel was firm. We separate from the kids, they're vulnerable, we stay, we protect them. Had another idea. What if we don't fight them at all? Everyone looked at him. You control the defense turrets, right? And the fence systems. Yes, but the turrets aren't designed to track inside the preserve. Too many false readings from wildlife. Can you make them track armed hostiles? Was quiet for a moment. Maybe, if I override the safety protocols and manually designate targets, but I'd need clear line of sight from the turret positions. The clearing south of here, said, pointing at his map. 3 turret towers have overlapping coverage if we can get there. Daniel saw it. We lure them into a kill zone, controls the turrets, we stay with the children. He won't fall for a simple trap, warned. No, Daniel agreed. But he might fall for bait. Can you fake my comm signal? Easily. Then here's what we do. 10 minutes later, Lord received an audio message. Daniel's voice broken and desperate. This is Captain Hayes. We're abandoning position. Too many of you, not enough of us. We're taking the children and running for the south fence. If you let us go, we won't fight back. The message cut off. Smiled. They're running. South fence, he said. Move quickly before they reach it. Lady, who had joined the group with her own guards, frowned. It could be a trap. What trap? They're 4 humans with small arms. We have explosives and numbers. Even if it is a trap, we can handle it. They moved south at a rapid pace, wanted this finished. The galaxy had seen his videos. His government was already issuing statements calling him a criminal. His accounts were being frozen. Everything he had built was gone. But he could still have revenge. The clearing appeared ahead, scanned it with his sensors. No heat signatures, no movement, empty. "Spread out," he ordered. "Search the area." The guards moved into the clearing, followed, weapon ready. That's when activated the turrets. The three towers came online simultaneously. Red targeting lasers painted every guard in the clearing. The mechanical voice spoke. "Hostile forces detected. Weapons locked. Stand down." Spun, looking for the source. "What is this?" "This is the end of your hunt," Daniel's voice came through the speakers. "Drop your weapons, all of them, right now." "You think automated turrets scare me?" Raised his rifle toward the nearest tower. The turret fired, not at but at the ground next to his feet. The blast threw him backward. The other guards froze. "Next shot won't miss," Daniel said. "I have every turret on this preserve under my control. You're standing in the open with nowhere to hide. Your choice. Surrender or die." One guard dropped his weapon, then another. Within seconds, all of them had their hands up, except. "No," he said. "I will not surrender to humans, to maintenance workers. You're nothing, weak, soft. You serve us, you don't command us." "Then you're an idiot," Lady said, dropping her weapon. "It's over, we lost." "Never," turned his rifle toward the trees where he thought Daniel might be hiding. "You want these children so badly? Then watch them die." He started moving back toward the caves. The turrets tracked him but didn't fire. His voice was tight in Daniel's ear. "I can stop him, but it will be a kill shot. The turrets aren't precise enough for anything else at this range." Daniel made the decision in a second. "Take it." Wait's voice, "I have him," had moved through the trees during the standoff, getting a better position. Now he had a clear shot, not at but at his weapon. The rifle sparked and exploded in hands. The noble screamed, dropping the ruined weapon and clutching his burned hands. "Target neutralized," reported, moving to secure. By the time reached him, was on his knees, rage and pain on his face. Bound his hands and pulled him to his feet. "It's over," said simply. The response ships arrived an hour later. First were the local authorities, followed quickly by Galactic Council peacekeepers. Then human ships appeared, full of very angry Marines who had seen the videos. Daniel and his team walked out of the forest with 20 children behind them. Maya was carrying one of the smaller ones who was too tired to walk. Sophie and held hands with, refusing to let him go. The scene at the landing area was chaos. Medical teams rushed to treat the children. News crews were recording everything. Officials were arresting guards and staff members. Arrived on one of the first human transports, she ran straight to Daniel. "You did it," she said, tears in her eyes. "You actually did it." "We all did it," Daniel looked at his team, "and it's not over yet." He was right. The videos had changed everything. Within 24 hours, emergency sessions were called in governments across the galaxy. The Galactic Council was facing its biggest crisis in decades. Protests erupted on hundreds of worlds. People were demanding answers. How could this happen? How many officials knew? What other horrors were hiding behind legal permits and bureaucratic forms? The government moved fast to distance itself from the preserve. They arrested Lord and 40 other nobles connected to the operation. They froze assets and opened their records to investigation. But it wasn't enough. The evidence showed that council members had approved permits for the preserve. Financial records revealed bribes paid to officials across multiple systems. This went deeper than just one hunting operation. The trial began 3 weeks later. It was held on a neutral station, broadcast live to every world with network access. Over 2 billion beings watched the first day. Lord sat in the defendant's box, his hands still bandaged. His lawyers argued that he had done nothing illegal. The permits were valid. The children were unclaimed refugees with no legal standing. Everything was by the book. Then, she presented years of missing person reports that no one had investigated, transfer orders that led nowhere, payments that went to officials who should have been protecting these children. "They weren't missing because no one cared," said. "They were missing because someone wanted them that way, because it was easier to ignore refugees than to admit our system was broken." Maya next. At 14, she was old enough to speak for herself. She described the holding cells. the fear, the knowledge that any day could be the day you were selected for the hunt. "I stopped believing anyone would help us," she said quietly. "We were nobody's children. Nobody cared if we lived or died until Captain Hayes proved me wrong." When they showed the video evidence, even lawyers looked sick. The prosecution played clip after clip, children running, hunters laughing, the moment of death, over and over. The most powerful moment came when they showed Sophie, and the twins had been recorded by preserved cameras during those 30 minutes before the hunt began. Sophie was trying to be brave for her brother. "Mom and Dad would want us to be strong," she said. "Was crying, but they're not here. We're all alone." "We have each other," Sophie said, hugging him. "We'll always have each other." The courtroom was silent watching this. Then the video showed what would have happened if Daniel's team hadn't intervened. The hunters tracking the children, getting closer. The video stopped before the worst part, but everyone knew what came next. The judge, a respected elder from spoke directly to. "You say these children had no legal standing, no rights, no value. I say you're wrong. Every child has value, every life matters, and you will answer for every single one you took." The verdict took 3 days. Lord was found guilty on 217 counts of murder. 42 other were convicted on various charges. 5 Galactic Council members were removed from office and faced criminal charges. The sentences were harsh. Received life imprisonment on a maximum security station with no possibility of release. His fortune was seized and distributed to victim families and survivor support programs. But the trial also revealed uncomfortable truths about the galaxy. The refugee system was broken. Children fell through cracks all the time. The preserve was just the worst example of a wider problem. Daniel and his team faced their own hearing. The charges were serious: unauthorized military action, violation of sovereign territory, destruction of private property. The military prosecutor laid out the case. "They acted without orders, without authorization. They started an incident that nearly caused a war. This cannot be tolerated." Then the defense called witnesses. Every single one of the 20 rescued children, their families, other survivors from the preserve's records. Jaken's mother spoke last. She had thought her sons were dead. Then she got a call saying they were alive, saved by Marines who refused to follow rules when children were dying. "You want to punish the men who saved my boys?" she asked the court. "Then you punish me too, because I would have done the same thing if I could." The military judge looked at Daniel. "Captain Hayes, do you have anything to say?" Daniel stood. "Yes, sir, I knew the rules, I knew what breaking them would cost. But I also knew that 20 children would die if we followed procedure. Someone had to choose. I chose the children. I'd make the same choice again." The judge was quiet for a long time. Then he spoke. "This court finds Captain Hayes and his team guilty of unauthorized action. The sentence is formal reprimand on their service records." Everyone waited. However, this court also awards the Distinguished Service Medal to all 4 team members for extraordinary courage and moral leadership. Sometimes the right thing is more important than the proper thing. Dismissed. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed Daniel's team. Maya and the children were there too, waiting. Sophie ran to Daniel and hugged him. "Thank you for saving us." Daniel knelt down to her level. "You saved yourselves by being brave. We just helped." Hugged him too. "When I grow up, I want to be a Marine like you." "Then be better than me," Daniel said. "Be the kind of Marine who never has to make the choice I made. Be the kind who fixes things so no child ever has to run for their life again." That night, the Galactic Council passed the Haven Protocol. New laws protecting refugees, independent oversight of relocation programs, severe penalties for exploitation. It wouldn't fix everything, but it was a start. And somewhere in the darkness of space, on a preserve that would soon be torn down, a memorial was being planned. 217 names would be carved into stone. Children who died because the galaxy looked away. But they wouldn't be forgotten anymore. Sophie had been right. They were somebody's children. They were everyone's children. 1 year after the rescue, stood in front of the memorial on 9. The hunting preserve was gone. In its place was a park dedicated to the children who died there. 217 names were carved into black stone that reflected the sky. Maya stood beside her, no longer the angry, frightened girl from the holding cell. She was 15 now, taller and more confident. She placed flowers at the base of the memorial. "I think about them every day," Maya said quietly. "The ones who didn't make it out." "So do I," replied. "That's why we keep working, so their deaths mean something." Haven's Edge had changed since that day. The corrupt officials were gone, replaced by people who actually cared about the refugees they processed. The facility had new oversight systems and regular inspections, but more importantly, it had hope. Had adopted Maya officially 6 months ago. The paperwork was complicated, but neither of them cared. They were family now. Maya had even started school, making friends for the first time in years. Daniel arrived with his team, and were all there, dressed in their formal uniforms. They had been invited to speak at the dedication ceremony. Sophie and came with their uncle, who had claimed them after the rescue. The twins were 9 now, healing slowly from their trauma. They still had nightmares sometimes, but they were getting better. "Captain Hayes," Sophie ran up and hugged him, followed more slowly but smiled when he saw the Marines. "How are you two doing?" Daniel asked. "Good," said. "I'm playing soccer now, and Sophie is learning piano." "Mom and Dad always wanted me to learn music," Sophie added, "so I'm doing it for them." The ceremony began at noon. Speakers from across the galaxy came to pay respects. The Galactic Council sent representatives, though many beings still didn't trust the Council after everything that came out. But the real change was happening in smaller ways, on individual worlds. The Haven Protocol had passed with strong enforcement measures. Refugee processing stations across the galaxy had been reformed. Independent monitors checked on relocated children. Database systems tracked every transfer. It wasn't perfect. There were still problems and corruption in some places, but it was better than before. 3 other exploitation operations had been discovered and shut down thanks to investigations launched after the preserve's exposure. 40 more children were rescued. Hundreds of officials faced charges. The species had faced the hardest questions. Many were horrified by what their nobles had done. A reform movement swept through their government, with younger demanding change. Administrator, who had led the reform faction, attended the ceremony. He approached Daniel afterward. "Captain Hayes," said formally, "I wanted to thank you personally. What happened here was a shame on my entire species. We are working to ensure it never happens again." "Actions matter more than words," Daniel replied, "but I respect what you're trying to do. We have started a joint program with humanity, refugee protection and monitoring. I hope you will consider being an advisor." Daniel looked at, who nodded slightly. "I'll think about it," Daniel said. After the ceremony, the group gathered privately. All 20 rescued children had come, some with new families, others still in care programs, but all alive, all safe. Jaken's mother brought food and insisted everyone eat. "You saved my boys. It's the least I can do." The children played together while the adults talked. They had formed a support network, staying in contact across the galaxy. They understood each other in ways no one else could. Maya watched Sophie teaching a younger girl how to play a hand-clapping game. It was normal, simple, the kind of thing children should always be doing. "You okay?" asked. "Yeah," Maya said. "I was just thinking. A year ago, I thought I would die in those holding cells. Now I'm here with you, and Sophie is teaching games, and everything is different." "You survived," said. "You all did. That takes incredible strength." "We had help." Maya looked at Daniel and his team. "They could have just reported it and waited for the authorities. That's what they were supposed to do, but they didn't. They came for us." Later found Daniel standing alone near the memorial wall. "You all right, Captain?" "I was just reading the names," Daniel said. "All the ones we didn't save, the ones who died before we knew this place existed." "You can't save everyone." "No, but we should have known sooner. The signs were there. Missing children, strange permits. If someone had paid attention earlier." Was quiet for a moment. "That's why we did what we did, so next time someone will pay attention, because they know the cost of looking away." Daniel nodded. "Told me she's been contacted by 3 different governments. They want her to audit their refugee systems. Starting a medical program for trauma survivors, and I'm teaching tactical response to protection units." Smiled. "We all found ways to keep fighting." "What about you, Captain? What's next?" Daniel had been offered many positions. military command, government advisory roles, even private security, but he had chosen something different. "I'm going back to field work," he said. "His foundation needs someone to lead protection teams at refugee stations, making sure what happened here doesn't happen anywhere else. They're lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have work that matters." As the sun set over the memorial park, the group gathered for one final moment together. 21 children who should have died but lived. 4 Marines who broke the rules to do what was right, and a galaxy that would never be quite the same. Sophie stood in front of everyone. She had written something and wanted to share it. "I wrote this poem about what happened," she said, her young voice clear. "It's called We Were Nobody's Children." She read, "We ran through trees with fear inside. No place to go, no place to hide. They hunted us for fun and sport, while we were just refugees who sought a home, a family, something kind. But only hunters did we find. We were nobody's children then, lost and scared and way past when anyone should care or try. We thought that we were left to die. But someone came who wouldn't leave, who made the monsters finally grieve, who showed the galaxy what's true, that every child belongs to you. Not just parents, not just kin, but everyone who lets us in, who sees us hurt and chooses care, who proves that someone's always there. We're not nobodies now, we've found that love and safety still abound, that humans fight for what is right, even in the darkest night. So thank you to the brave Marines, who showed us what true courage means. And thank you to the ones who see that children matter, even me." There wasn't a dry eye in the group. Daniel had to turn away to compose himself. Even was wiping his face. Hugged his sister. "That was really good, Sophie." "It's true," she said simply. "They saved us, and not just us, everyone else too." 10 years passed. The children grew up. Maya became a social worker, helping other refugees. Sophie and both joined the diplomatic corps, working on refugee rights. Jake became a doctor, taught at a school for displaced children. All 20 of them carried the memory of what happened. But they also carried something else: hope. The knowledge that even in the darkest moments, someone might choose to help. Someone might break the rules. Someone might say that children matter more than procedures. Daniel continued his work with Foundation. They prevented 2 more exploitation attempts in those 10 years, rescued hundreds of children from dangerous situations, made sure the Haven Protocol was enforced, and stayed close. They met yearly at the memorial, joined by more people each time. The group grew as other survivors found them, as other heroes emerged, as the movement expanded. The Reformation continued. Administrator became a respected voice for change. Young grew up knowing the shame of the preserve and working to prove their species could be better. The galaxy didn't become perfect. There was still corruption, still cruelty, still systems that failed the vulnerable. But there was also awareness now. People knew to look for the signs. They knew to ask questions. They knew that refugees were not invisible. And they knew what humanity would do if anyone tried to hurt children again. Graduated from the Diplomatic Academy at age 28. He was assigned to a border station managing refugee relations. On his first day, he put a small picture on his desk. It was of him and Sophie at age 8, taken the day after they were rescued. Behind them stood Daniel and his team. A colleague saw the picture. "Is that Captain Hayes, the one from 9? "Yes," said. "He saved my life. He saved a lot of lives. I heard that story in training. They say he started a revolution in how we treat refugees." Smiled. He did something simpler than that. He saw children who needed help and he helped them. Everything else came after. On 9, the memorial park had grown. New names were added every year, not of victims but of survivors who lived full lives and wanted to be remembered there. The park became a place of hope, not just grief. Maya brought her own daughter to visit when the girl turned 10. They stood in front of the memorial together. "Mama, why are all these names here?" the girl asked. "Because we don't want to forget," Maya said. "These children died when people looked away. These names remind us to never look away again." "Were you here, Mama?" "Yes, sweetheart, I was here, and someone saved me." "The Marines?" "Yes, and not just them. Your grandmother, and all the people who saw something wrong and chose to make it right." The girl looked at the names, thinking, "When I grow up, I want to help people too." Maya hugged her daughter. "Then you will. That's how we honor them, by making sure their story changes things, by being the kind of people who choose to help." Daniel came to the park for the last time on his 70th birthday. He was retired now, his body too old for field work but his mind still sharp. Had retired too, though her foundation continued under Maya's leadership. They walked through the park together, two old friends who had fought the same fight. "Do you ever regret it?" asked. "Breaking the rules, the reprimand on your record?" "Never," Daniel said. "I regret that we couldn't save them all. I regret that it happened in the first place. But going to that preserve, getting those children out, never." "Sophie's daughter asked me about you last week. She's doing a school project on heroes." Daniel laughed. "I'm not a hero, I just did what anyone should do." "But most people don't," said gently. "That's what makes it matter." They sat on a bench facing the memorial. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the names. "The galaxy is better now than it was," Daniel said. "Not perfect, but better. Those children didn't die for nothing." "No," agreed. "They didn't, and the ones who lived are changing the world. Maya, Sophie, all of them, they're making sure it never happens again." Daniel looked at the memorial one last time. 217 names. 217 children who should have lived but didn't. But also 20 children who did live. 20 who grew up and had families and careers and made the galaxy a little bit better. "We did good work," he said quietly. "Yes," said we did. The stars came out above them. Somewhere in the galaxy, refugee children were sleeping safely, protected by laws that didn't exist before, watched over by people who cared, given chances they wouldn't have had 10 years ago. The hunt was over, the children were safe, and humanity had proven something important to the galaxy. Mess with children, any children, and humans would come for you, not with anger, not with revenge, but with justice. And that made all the difference. Sophie stood at a podium on Earth, addressing the Galactic Council. She was 38 now, a senior diplomat and advocate for refugee rights. She was presenting new protections for displaced populations. 10 years ago," she began, "I was 8 years old and running for my life through a forest. I thought I would die that day. I thought no one cared about refugee children like me and my brother." She paused, looking at the assembled representatives. "But someone did care, and because they cared enough to act, I'm standing here today. My brother is negotiating peace on a border world. My friend Maya is running the largest refugee aid organization in 3 sectors. The children who survived with us are doctors, teachers, engineers, and leaders. We were nobody's children, but someone made us everybody's children. That's what the Haven Protocol means. That's what human courage taught us. Every child matters. Every life has value. And if you forget that, if you ever think it's acceptable to look away while children suffer, remember what happened on 9. Remember that humans don't forget, we don't forgive, and we don't stop fighting for what's right." The council passed her proposal unanimously. Stronger protections, better oversight, more resources for refugee children. As Sophie left the chamber, she thought about Captain Hayes, now passed away peacefully at age 75. She thought about Maya, all the people who chose to help when help was needed. And she thought about the memorial on 9, where names were carved in stone and flowers always bloomed. The hunt was over, but the memory lived on, and the galaxy was better for it. That night across hundreds of worlds, refugee children went to sleep in safe beds, protected by laws, watched by caring adults, given hope for tomorrow. And somewhere, looking down at the memorial park under the stars, the spirits of 217 children finally rested in peace. Because they were no longer nobody's children. They were everybody's children. Forever. And humanity had shown the galaxy what happens when you hunt children. The hunters become the hunted, always. Through. The final confrontation was coming. "Time to begin," he said. But this hunt was going to be different, because for the first time, something was hunting the hunters back. Sophie held her twin brother close. They were 8 years old, orphaned when their colony was destroyed. They thought they were going somewhere safe. They had no idea what was waiting for them on 9. But someone was coming, someone who would make the hunters answer for what they had done.